Offerors and quoters are required to be registered in SAM at the time an offer or quotation is submitted in order to comply with the annual representations and certifications requirements, except for purchases under the micro purchase threshold that use government commercial cards as both the purchasing and payment mechanism, as opposed to using the purchase card for payment only, classified contracts when registered in SAM or the use of SAM data could compromise the safeguarding of classified information or national security, contracts awarded by deployed contracting officers in the course of military operations, including but not limited to contingency operations or humanitarian or peacekeeping operations, contracting officers located outside the United States and its outlying areas for work to be performed in support of diplomatic or developmental operations, including those performed in support of foreign assistance programs overseas, in an area that has been designated by the Department of State as a danger to pay post, or contracting officers in the conduct of emergency operations, such as response to natural or environmental disasters, or national or civil emergencies. Contracts with individuals for performance outside the United States and its outlying areas. Contracts awarded without providing for full and open competition due to unusual or compelling urgency. Contract actions at or below $30,000 awarded to foreign vendors for work performed outside the United States if it is impractical to obtain SAM registration, and micro purchases that do not use the electronic funds transfer method for payment and are not required to be reported. In the matter of United Valve Company, the protester alleged that the award was improper because the cage code identified in the awardee's proposal did not match the approved source's cage code required by the RFP. In addition, the protester alleged that because cage codes and DUN numbers are used to identify discrete businesses, it was unreasonable for the agency to conclude that the presence of two different cage codes at the same address must belong to the same entity. Uncertainty as to the identity of an offering entity renders an offer technically unacceptable, since ambiguity as to its offeror's identity could result in there being no party to perform the obligations of the contract. Generally, the entity awarded the contract should be the entity that submitted the initial proposal. The information readily available, such as cage codes and DUN numbers, must reasonably establish that differently identified entities are in fact the same concern. Cage codes are assigned to discrete business entities for a variety of purposes to dispositively establish the identity of a legal entity for contractual purposes. Similarly, the DUNS numbering system is established by Dun & Bradstreet Information Services, and discrete 9-digit numbers are assigned for purposes of establishing the precise identification of an offeror or contractor. The GAO noted that this solicitation involved damper assemblies as a source control item that was required to be procured from an approved source as identified by its part number and cage code. According to the GAO, the record showed that the awardee's proposal identified the correct part number but did not reference the proper cage code, which was the approved source code. Instead, throughout its proposal, the awardee included its SAM registration, and it showed that it was associated with a different cage code. Although both potential entities have the same name and the same address, since each entity possessed a different cage code, the GAO found that the record was devoid of substantive evidence to show that the awardee was either the approved source identified in the solicitation or was qualified to offer a source control item. Given that the RFP identified the damper assemblies at issue as a critical application item and a source control item required to be procured from either an approved source or an entity that was qualified prior to award, on the record submitted to the GAO, it found that it was unreasonable for the agency to determine that the awardee's proposal was technically acceptable.